Readings from Jeremiah 29, verses 4 through 7. Jeremiah sent a letter from Jerusalem to Babylon, to the surviving electors among the exiles, to the priests, the prophets, and all the other people Nebuchadnezzar had deported. The letter read, "Thus says God the omnipotent, God of Israel, to all the exiles I deported from Jerusalem to Babylon," listen up, "build houses to live in, plant gardens, and eat what they grow. Marry and raise daughters and sons. Find wives for your sons and husbands for your daughters, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply while you are there. Do not decrease. Rather, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have exiled you to. Rather, seek all of that, but pray to the Holy One for if it prospers, you will prosper.
The Siganti family have lived in 4 nations. Angela, the great-grandmother of the family, was born in Austria-Hungary. Maria, the grandmother, was born in Italy. Alda was born in Yugoslavia. And Alex, who's telling the story, was born in Slovenia. But they all lived or live in the same house. They all have lived near a border. And over the past century or so, that border has shifted with time. The first generation lived in Austria-Hungary, but during the time of Mussolini, the border shifted. And the next generation, living in the same house, now they lived in Italy. As the Second World War came to a close and the Allied powers who stretched out, the Soviet Union at that point was in charge of the area, and slowly it became part of the Soviet satellite, Yugoslavia. And then the next generation, as Yugoslavia went its way, Alex lives in Slovenia, in the same family home they've always lived in. But living in that same home has not always been easy, according to the article in the New York Times this past week. For as the borders have shifted, sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was hard. When Italy controlled it, the Italians who had that descent, they felt welcomed. But when Yugoslavia came in, it stirred up anti-Italian fears. Some of it built upon the war, some of it built upon the change of how a country was run. But Alex who is now 30 years old, doesn't worry about what language he will speak. Alex speaks Italian, Slovenian, and at work, and for the New York Times, English. Borders are interesting. Some would call them artificial lines. Borders, sometimes you wake up one morning and you are in this country, and overnight you awake and you're in another country. Now, we, New Yorkers, especially as we get closer to Canada, as we travel further west and north, we know something about borders. Borders allow us adventure. Borders create headaches. Last week when I was traveling back to Rochester, flashing signs along the interstate said, "No trucks to Canada." There was a border issue. The computer system had failed them, and they were not able to process all the goods coming across the border, making the traffic back up for miles, especially trucks. At the Lewiston border and in Buffalo, if you were traveling by car, it suggested perhaps crossing the Rainbow Bridge at Niagara Falls. Borders and policies make things interesting. I've been waiting for a hymnal to be published from the United Church of Canada, their brand new hymnal, "Then Let Us Sing." I can't get my hands on it because of heavy tariffs right now. The United Church of Canada and the Canadian Postal Service aren't processing packages across the border. I tried to ask the distribution center for the United Church of Canada, saying, "Can I come pick up the book, pay for it in advance, and I will be my own delivery service?" That's not possible, for we are not set up for that type of delivery. But the thing is, borders are peaceful, borders are fortified. Some are natural borders. They run along a river, they cut across a lake. It's not easy to go from one side to the other. Some borders are dangerous. Yet, as Jeremiah the prophet calls out, is that no matter where we land, is that we are to be working for the peace and the prosperity wherever we may land. And it's not one of those things, well, just settle in, it's okay, don't work for change, but it is to respect the neighbors that you find, for them to respect you too, to be in this together. In the story that we hear of Jesus and the lepers today, it's an interesting story because Jesus travels along a border, the border of Galilee and Samaria. The 10 lepers appear. The final one, the one that comes back to Jesus, is a Samaritan. Some would say on the wrong side of the border. Yet Jesus engages this leper for the way they are, someone thankful, for someone healed, not creating a list of passport and visa requirements, but meeting that person as if they were a neighbor. For if they had been there the entire lives, that they too are important. We live in a world where borders are tough. We look at a border that's not all that long that goes into Gaza. We are praying with all the world that perhaps, hopefully, this is the time that there will be peace. But peace only comes when we recognize one another as brothers and sisters and siblings, that we are not different, that we are human. Of course, we bring our own selves and the uniqueness to it, but we bring that we are all created in the image of God. And God does not see borders. God sees a globe of people called to love one another, to seek out the peace, and in that peace, work for prosperity. Not millions and millions of dollars for everyone necessarily, but not millions and millions for just a few either. Where things are equal, where there's equity, and people have what they need to live. May we be like Jesus, willing to walk close to the border, wander over borders, and welcome the foreigner, the exile, the wounded as neighbor, as if all the world's land has no border, but we are called